Hi, everyone. This is Stephanie Mann at the Safe Kids Now show. And I am so excited today to have a very important guest. And she's talking about one of the most important topics I can think about as far as children are concerned and what is happening to children today. And her name is Kelly Letvak. And Kelly is got her degree in organizational communication. She's the mother of two, 20 and 23. And she married her hometown or her college sweetheart. In 2007, she founded Tools for Life Books, which reduced recidivism rate among teens, which was a great start to her career. But in I think it was 1916 or 2016, her daughter was persuaded by human traffickers, which changed the family forever. She's the founder and director of Childproof America 2017, Safeguarding Families Against Sex Trafficking. And in 2017, Katie Magazine honored Kelly as the top 100 women of Katie, and 2018, the top 10 outstanding Katie People of the Year. So, welcome to you, Kelly. I am so happy to have you join us today to share information about an upcoming conference. Tell us how you got started, what happened in your own family, and this is such an important topic. And I think everybody that hears about child sex trafficking says this is unbelievable what's happening to our kids. I even read an article in a Texas newspaper that said 79,000 children had been identified in Texas as being sex trafficked.
Yes.
That's horrendous. So, start off by telling us a little bit about your story and how you got started.
Well, first, thank you so much, Stephanie, for having me on today. I'm so delighted to be able to share such a serious and important message with your listeners and your viewers. Childproof America started in 2017, such as you had indicated, and it started following a very tragic experience we went through as a family. My husband and I, we built a house in a very nice suburban community in Texas and put our kids in top school district schools and involved them with all kinds of sporting activities and church and community activities. So we really consider ourselves pretty much all-American family. But it was in 2016 that actual students inside my daughter's school pursued her for what would be now known as trafficking, as human trafficking. And prior to this, I wrote a book for teens and I ran a nonprofit that worked with high-risk youth. but nothing in my previous work had anything to do with human trafficking. Like many others, I thought trafficking was something that we saw in the movies and definitely knew about internationally, but nothing domestically. So it was through our tragic event with our daughter that we came to know this issue very up close. And it was because of what we went through that I felt so strongly as a parent that I needed to pick up the torch and do something about it. It was so heartbreaking and so devastating to us that for me, the only way to really heal was to bring about something positive. Therefore, Childproof America was founded to safeguard families against sex trafficking. We work specifically with parents uh, on two planes. The first one is to educate, to equip and empower our parents and our families and caregivers with the tools they need to recognize this and safeguard their families from being victimized. The
Great.
second lane that we are in is crisis intervention. And that is when a child goes missing, that we will come alongside that parent and help them navigate and understand all the resources that their child will need, as well as the other family members. So when my husband and I were going through this and our daughter was gone, a lot of organizations reached out to us. And it was so overwhelming. Well intentioned people, for the most part, reached out to say, this is what your child needs. This is what your other child needs. This is what you need. And it was all coming at us so fast that we did not have time to even process and make sound decisions because you're in a state of desperation and
Yeah.
you're moving so quickly to save your child's life. And you may have 5 seconds to make a decision. And that's the space that we were operating in, was just a space of fear and desperation, making choices. Some were good, some were not. And ultimately, we would continue that journey for many years. And
Kelly, I just like a little clarification. Did you say that students in the school
yes,
pulled her into the sex trafficking network?
yes. It
Is
was
that
a
how?
very, yes, Stephanie, it was a very organized network of current students and previous graduates. And
Oh my
they were
goodness.
all networking together to identify students within the school that were considered at risk. And at that time, our daughter was going through a season that was traumatic. And so that put her on the radar of these other students that she kind of knew in passing, but did not have a real friendship with them. But then they suddenly pursued her and started to build a friendship that looked very normal for high school kids. But in reality, it was a whole planned out strategy that they had working within the school to identify, befriend, and exploit kids that were going through difficult seasons.
That's horrifying. The students themselves were pulling these kids into their network.
Yes.
Did she eventually get out of it?
Years later,
Years
years
later.
later, but it was many years that my husband and I and her sibling didn't know if she was even on the planet with us anymore. It
Oh
was
my.
very terrifying, but we are not here as parents or as an organization to strike fear in
Mhm.
our communities, but rather to bring awareness
Right.
and give the tools to our families, to our communities, that they can recognize this online and in person, because it's pretty textbook stuff. The
Yeah.
mythology and the behaviors and the whole process is pretty consistent from case to case. But if parents are not aware of what that looks like, it'll go right under your nose. And before you know it, your child is so deeply involved in the grooming process that it's very hard to back them out. Very
Mm.
difficult. So prevention is key.
I would agree with that. I think prevention all the way around for parents. Actually, that's one of the reasons I wrote my book, Empowerment Parenting, to empower children before they start getting and making bad choices, and using their gut feeling as to how to discern if something is good or bad.
Yes.
So, how did you actually start Childproof America? How did you go about that?
Well, because I had a nonprofit for 10 years that worked with kids that were incarcerated, I was able to transition pretty effortlessly from working with kids that were incarcerated to families in crisis. So we transitioned and really launched Childproof America in early 2017. So it was a matter of restructuring our board, restructuring our business plan. Even though we were working with high risk and crisis people, we were now working kind of on the other side. I worked with kids that had committed crimes. Now I'm working with victims of crime.
Wow.
But I'll tell you, Stephanie, it is such a unique perspective to be working on both sides. So I understand like the criminal mind, criminal thinking, and what causes an individual to exploit another for profit. I understand that whole side of it because I worked in that space for 10 years and I loved working with those kids. But then finding myself on the other side gives me another perspective,
I
one that I
guess.
never wish upon anyone, and certainly um, just don't. I won't. You won't hear me say, "Well, if I can help one child, then it's all worth what we went through with our kid." It's not. I'm not going to say that because it was so completely devastating to our family. But what I can do is take that organization that was created in early 2017 and continue to grow it to help countless families in our nation, because this is the fastest growing criminal enterprise on
Yeah.
the globe today. Is human trafficking. And and I think that we're so far behind the eight ball in understanding what this looks like and really recognizing it on our kids' devices as well as in person. And so our country is facing so many challenges right now with the pandemic, with just a lot of social issues, that this is just one more thing that parents have to say, oh my gosh, no, I have to be afraid of the kids that are in my child's school, the kids that are in my child's youth group at church. But for us to deny it is putting our own families at risk. So we have to say, yes, this is here, and
Mm-hmm.
we can't be fearful. We need to be proactive, and we need to
Absolutely.
make sure we understand this issue. Or you may find yourself in a situation like us where your child is gone for several years and you do not know if they are on this earth or not. So we need to understand and recognize that this is a very serious threat in our country and globally. And it's not the white van on the corner. It's not like what people think human trafficking looks like. It is something that is so subtle and so patient and so methodical. And parents need to, number one, understand that this can affect any family anywhere in any community. It is not what people think. It is not a kidnapping. It is a events and activities that look very normal that we expect our children to experience in church and school and coffee houses and shopping malls in our nation.
Well, one of the things that's bothered me for a long time is the fact that we have become such a sexualized nation.
Yes.
We've made it so acceptable that our kids are totally confused
Yes.
about this whole issue. Just look at our movies. Even television makes it perfectly everyday occurrence, normal, if you will, hopping in bed with a one night stand. I mean, how do we turn this around? This is sick. It's really
Yes.
a sick, and it's destroying the family. It's hurting everybody. And how do we turn this around?
Boy, Stephanie, that is a very good question, and it's going to be a complete reset in our society.
Yes.
Prayer has been taken out of the schools. The movies that we see, as you mentioned, are super sexualized. Our magazines, the image that females portray on billboards, give
Yes.
our young people a message from a very early age, and also the access to pornography. Kids, on average, will view pornography for the first time at age 8. So we kind of have the perfect storm here, but
Yes, we
we
do.
can't give up and we can't say, well, there's nothing we can do. What we need to understand that this is spiritual warfare.
Agreed.
Because
Agreed. I couldn't agree with you more.
absolutely, what can take down and destroy our families?
Mm-hmm.
It is sexual deviance, it is infidelity, it is a missing child that is being exploited sexually. If you look at this issue of sex trafficking, it destroys a family on every level, from the marriage to the wife, to the husband, to the children. And we are at battle right now for our families and for our society. And what we need to do is we need to not be fearful and we need to not be discouraged. We need to stay focused and true to ensuring that our children stay safe and that we understand the access of pornography. We understand the challenges they're going to face, but we need to offset that by monitoring their devices, by talking to them about self-respect and self-worth and respect for others. And we need to do that with our young men as well as our young women, because our boys are being influenced. They are receiving this message, and it escalates from viewing pornography to ultimately being a seller or a buyer. So it is up to us as families and communities to come alongside our kids and be very open. People have said to me, how do I even talk to my child about sex trafficking? Well, you need to find a way to talk to them about sex trafficking, because if you don't, then you're going to be reactive and you're not being proactive. People are going to find them. You want them to learn the most valuable life lessons from you and not from their peers. So we need to not be embarrassed. We need to be very open and talk to our kids, but that means we ourselves need to be educated and informed so we can understand how to communicate with our kids effectively.
Well, we have to take a little break here for a moment, Kelly. And when we come back, I'm going to tell you one of the facts that I learned about boys becoming eunuchs as a result of pornography. So we will be back in just 30 seconds.
You're listening to All About Us Radio. We're live streaming 24/7, playing old school versus new school. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at AAU Media, and visit our website, www.aaumedia.com. Call us at 1-833-369-1444, extension 1, and leave us an inspirational message or request. You're listening to All About Us Radio. You're listening to All About Us Radio.
Okay, we're back. I mentioned about young boys on the computer. We had a guest on from the Justice Department, and he investigates crimes against children. And one of the things he said, which should get people talking, is the fact that if boys get addicted to porn, and it's on computer all over the place, it's where your child is. He said if they get addicted to porn and it's a stimulation, that they can become eunuchs if they're in the stage of puberty. That means they can't perform sexually. And I don't know how long that lasts, but parents, wake up, be much more aware of what is happening on the computer. We used to worry about the predator in the park or the predator down the street or someone like that, a stranger. Now the predator is in your home. And that has to be a red light for every single parent to make sure that your computer is not in a public, it is in the public space in your home. It's not in their bedroom where they can be in private and click it off the minute they hear the door open. This stuff is insidious. So what would you say about that, Kelly?
It is absolutely insidious, and it is so damaging to our young people on so many different levels,
Yeah.
personally, socially. And how will that manifest when they become husbands one day? It is
Yes.
just, it's so bad. But there's a lot of lawsuits against the biggest creator of pornography, which is Pornhub. And we need to, as families and communities, shut that down. But it's going to be extremely hard to do that, because where there's a lot of money to be made, there's going to be a lot of pushback. But we need to communicate with our sons and daughters, and females are also can have addictions to pornography. But we need to talk to our young people, and we need to instill values. But we also need to understand that we can put all kinds of protections and barriers on our kids' devices, but then they go to school, and the kids can have access there, or they can go to their sporting group, or they can go to church, and their friend can give them access. So it's not something that we're going to be able to shut down completely. So what we can do, though, is have open communication about, like I said, respect for themselves and respect for others.
Absolutely. And that's so critical for children to feel a sense of community within their own family, because family support is critical for children feeling respected, feeling loved. And of course, they need both parents in the family. But if they're not there, then we need to turn to grandparents and cousins or someone to give them a role model.
Yes.
Because we need to strengthen our families. And it is alarming to me that, as you said, this is a spiritual crisis. But the church needs to step up. We still have 350,000 churches in America.
Yes.
So they need to step up and start working outside of the church, members of the church getting involved. And many of them are, and that's wonderful, but we need more. We
Yes.
need people to knit these neighborhoods together to help support the kids on the block. Because one of our guests that's coming up in the future is AJ Jelani, who adopted kids on his block and became a mentor.
Yes.
And the kids are now returning to thank him. He mentored 30 kids on his block.
Yes.
Anybody can get to know kids and get to befriend them in a positive way, because there are so many negative influences out there. So tell me a little bit more about what your plans are for the future.
So I am so grateful for the opportunity to educate, empower, and inform different groups in Texas and actually throughout the nation. But we are seeing such a sharp increase in this exploitation, especially with the pandemic. There was a 43% in online cases in the first quarter of 2020. So my thought and my goal was to increase that education. How do we do that during a pandemic? Well, we find ways. A lot of people went online, but another avenue that Childproof America has taken is that we booked a major venue in the Houston area that has a seating capacity of 6,000 people. And
Great.
We had to postpone it a couple times because of the pandemic and bringing that many people together in one venue. Unfortunately, right before Christmas, because we're seeing other variants now coming out, we had to make the decision to come out of that venue that was so big and go to a smaller venue and stream our conference. So on January 15th, we will be having a smaller audience, but we will be streaming it. So we do not have that link available yet, but it should be available within the next 24 hours. So we're bringing in top speakers from around the nation, survivor leaders. We are bringing in a trauma specialist to help us understand the whole exploitation process. You know, how come our children can fall for this? They know right from wrong. They know good people, stranger danger, all of that, all those things that we raised our kids with. So we need to understand the whole trauma component. And we have Chris Hansen coming in, who hosted Dateline NBC to Catch a Predator. We need to understand the buyer mentality. What makes a male risk everything to exploit another human? We need to understand that. So this is so important for our viewers, for your viewers and listeners to tune in to get that education. It's a 12:30 to 6:30 Central Standard Time summit. So it is not a couple hours. It's an all-day investment, but you will walk away with so many tools and understanding the who, what, where, when, and why. And that is everything when it comes to prevention. So please mark your calendars, January 15th, and visit our website, childproofamerica.org. Follow us on social media. We'll be making a lot of announcements in the coming days to give you the link how you can tune in and get that education for your and bring all your family members around so everyone can be on the same page and understanding that.
You know, that's so important. I'm glad you're doing this. I mean, we should all be happy that you're trying to educate people, and I'd be happy to put that on my Safe Kids Now network. Just send me some information, and we'll put an announcement up, big bold print, because we need to have everybody more informed about child sex trafficking and the consequences to our families as a result of this, and what we can do to stop it. Well, any final thoughts from you on any suggestions or any ideas you'd like to share that you haven't had a chance to share?
I would say the biggest advice that I can give parents and caregivers, grandparents, aunts and uncles, is to understand this issue and don't underestimate the extent of what a predator will do to access your child.
Yeah.
We have one of our survivor leaders that is speaking at our summit was pursued on social media. And when I heard her on a podcast and I listened, I almost didn't book her because it was so hard to hear what happened to her. But what really spoke to me even more than that was the commitment that the predator had to get to her. And we cannot underestimate the lengths that people will go once they have their target on their radar and they're committed to accessing that target. They will take a year or two to access. They will groom their target over a long period of time. We need to understand how this works, what puts your child or loved one on the radar of a predator, and give tools to our kids to be able to recognize that, whether they're with us in person at school, on a gaming system. We need to give them the confidence that they recognize that and know how to keep themselves safe in any circumstance. We need to understand that this is in good schools, good communities, inner city. It is in churches. It is everywhere where kids are. And so we need to remove any stereotype that we have. And we need to not adopt the attitude of not my kid, because I'll tell you, that was my attitude, not my kid, but yes, my kid. But we're so grateful that she's thriving today and she's doing so well. And she herself is doing a lot of work to help others as well. So for us, we are so grateful that we came out of this and we're making a difference and we are healing as a family. but it will be a lifelong journey of healing for our daughter and for us as a family.
Those are such important words. I might also add a tip for families because I think the communication level, people are very busy, parents are very busy.
Mhm.
And one of the ways to improve communication is to have a listening chair in your kitchen or in your family room. And if someone one of the children sits in that chair and they have a problem, just everybody in the family has to stop and listen and hear what the child is feeling and talking about. Because I have found that a listening chair, which I put in my book, Empowerment Parenting, has been so effective in improving communication within the family so that you don't keep secrets. And then you build that trust that children need among themselves and with their parents. So consider putting a listening chair, if you've got young children or older children, in the kitchen somewhere, and say, anytime you sit in that chair, everybody has to stop and listen to what you have to say.
Yes.
So we need to
Excellent.
really improve communication in our families. And that's just one tip. So I want to thank you so much, Kelly Letvak, for being with me today and sharing this important information. And I want to make sure that everybody knows that you have this conference coming up. And I will put this on our website, safekidsnow.com, and you will have it on Childproof America.org.
Yes.
And we'll get that word out that everybody needs to be listening to hear what they can do to keep their kids safe.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for having me on and getting this important information out to your audience.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. And I look forward to talking to you in the future, because we want to also hear how successful this conference was. And I know it's going to be very successful.
Yes.
So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I just want to mention that we have a guest next week, and that will be an amazing lady by the name of Elizabeth Loge, and she's going to talk about the importance of health and your breathing. So we're going to talk about health along with all the other things that are going on. So join us next week at the Safe Kids Now show. Goodbye for now, and peace. 2022 is the year of peace and healing.
You're listening to All About Us Radio. We're live streaming 24/7, playing old school versus new school. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at AAU Media, and visit our website, www.aaumedia.com. Call us at 1-833-369-1444, extension 1, and leave us an inspirational message or request. You're listening to All About Us Radio.